Thank you for this opportunity. Having spent 45 years in JNU, one saw what was possible and how such a possibility can be decimated. We've heard a lot about access being denied, both to students and to faculty of the right kind. They do not have access anymore. Unless you are a Bhakt, you do not get access anymore into the education system. What we are going to talk about is that once you do get access, what is dished out to you? What is the curricula that you are forced to develop and teach? And since we are historians, and also because history is the core element in communal ideology, we are going to talk about what they are doing to history. What we are witnessing actually is a cynical abuse of history, weaponizing it in a manner that not only is India's secular democracy at threat, what we believe at threat is the nation itself. And one is not exaggerating. If you look at what Gregory Stanton, the person who heads the Genocide Watch, who had predicted the Rwandan genocide, has argued that what we are probably going to witness in India, if the current tendencies continue, is probably going to be the world's greatest genocide. And responsible people like Harish Khare, for example, has been editor of so many newspapers, has openly asked the RSS that what you are promoting is going to lead to civil war. So what we are dealing with is something very serious. The manner in which the largest minority in the country, 200 million, the manner in which they are being demonized, punished for just being Muslim. My student, Umar Khalid, is in jail for 5 years. A week will correct me if I am wrong, and I believe that his bail application could not be taken up 50 times because the presiding officer did not come. He's so scared. The judge does not appear 50 times. And so, it's denial of access. If you manage to get in, shutting your voices, that is happening. But to come back to our point, what we are going to seeing in history. I'll just make some bullet points. The communal vision of history is something that has come from the colonial period, created in the 19th century. The heart of the communal vision is that the Hindus and the Muslims constitute two different categories, two different nations, and that there was Muslim atrocity in India in the past, which has seared the Hindu psyche. Now both these notions are created in the 19th century. None of this existed before that. If there was indeed such a feeling, then the Hindus and the Muslims would not have joined hands in the 1857 mutiny and said, let us have Bahadur Shah Zafar as our emperor. So it is a complete imagination. And this imagination was carried forward by the communal parties, the Muslim League, the RSS, Hindu Mahasabha, etc. I just mentioned this because the umbilical cord link between the colonial and the communal is forgotten, especially since the communalists now masquerades as the nationalists. But these nationalists have a very strong linkage with colonialism, I wanted to mention. After independence, the Muslim leagues loses salience, and the RSS was put in jail, as you know, after Gandhiji's murder, 25,000 of them. And when they are let off 1.5 years later, they said, we will be only a cultural organization. That was the ground on which they were let off. And once they were let off, they focused on spreading a divisive hate ideology through the education system. The first thing they did in 1952 was set up the Saraswati Shishu Mandir in the presence of RSS chief M.S. Golwalkar. And these schools have now multiplied exponentially. There were 500 in 77. By 1993, there were 14,000, so on and so on. And today, in 92% of the districts of the country, there are RSS schools, 92%. So the spread is absolutely amazing, and we need to take cognizance of that. I'll take two or 3 minutes. The RSS schools spread poison. I'll just give one example, because I have 2 minutes. 1 minute, one example. For example, there in a 9 and 10-year-old children are taught this about Islam. The rise of Islam came with the invaders came with a sword in one hand and Quran in the other. Wherever they went, their army went like a storm in all 4 directions. Any country that came in their way was destroyed. Houses of prayer, universities were destroyed, libraries were burnt, books were destroyed, mothers and sisters were humiliated. People who are saying this are those who destroyed the Babri Masjid, vandalized the Bhandarkar library, and humiliated mothers and sisters in Gujarat. But that doesn't matter. But this is what the Muslims are. Similar things are said about Christians. Finally, in schools in Gujarat, Hitler and the German model is highlighted, and parallels drawn between the Hindus in India and the pure Germans in Germany, and the Muslims minority in India and the Jewish minority in Germany. I mean, this is serious stuff. It is not an accident, and many activists like Tista Sitalwad had been saying for a long time that Godhra was waiting to happen because what was being taught in the schools. Anybody who murdered a Muslim thought of himself as a hero. Just 30 seconds more. Earlier, the communal poison was spread, earlier meaning from the 50s onward, they were spread primarily through these RSS schools. But the RSS schools was not the education system. What we are witnessing today is the use of state power to normalize this kind of a curriculum into the general curriculum. And that is what Mridula is going to be talking about.
I would like to just make broad points, which is the fundamental transformation that takes place in the ability to spread this RSS Hindu communal supremacist ideology with the acquiring of state power. I think that's the major point we need to recognize. And this begins when the first time they come close to state power at the national level, which is in 1977, after the victory of the Janata Party against Indira Gandhi. And as you know, the Jan Sangh merged into the Janata Party, and people of RSS Jan Sangh background became ministers. So the pressure started immediately, and there was an attempt then to ban history books. So the story goes back to much before they were anywhere near a majority or heading a coalition government, when they were just maybe 2 or 3 ministers in a government. The point I'm trying to make is that they are very clear in their objectives, that every means possible has to be used. And they're also very, very conscious about the way state power can be used and must be used. This is in quite contrast to the secular forces. I think that's the point I want to make. For them, the political project of communalization of society has to be pushed at all levels, whether it's through controlling scientific institutions, whether it's through the RSS's own wings, but they are very, aware of the way state power can be used to further their objectives. So they've used state power in India in a manner that no political party has ever used, either at the center or in the provinces, and we don't probably realize it. It's very common, to say that every time that there's a change in government, there'll be a change in curriculum. That became a kind of myth, which is not true. It is not true that in India all political parties have always imposed their political agendas onto every sphere of life. I think we need to recognize the big difference. Otherwise, we don't know what we are up against. There is a single-mindedness to it. For example, I'm a little deviating from the curriculum thing to say, we all know the way appointments have been taking place in universities. We know that there is somebody from the volunteer organization, the RSS, who's deeply involved. There's usually a person identified. By now people know where and how it happens. And we all know that lists come with numbers, and we know how the appointments are made. Now, I don't think that we can talk about political influence and manipulation and, patronage in earlier regimes, but it's never been this kind of organized effort at imposing an ideological hegemony over society through using the proximity to state power. So beginning with 77, 79, but there was a big protest at that time. All over the country there were protests, and they could not get away with the agenda, which was basically, they first attacked the history books, Bipin Chandra, Satish Chandra. I think Satish Chandra's book was not there then. Robila Thapar, Bipin Chandra, these were the main targets, because the early books that had come into the curriculum at that time. But then we jump to 1999, 2004, where they had, a good 6 years actually to try out. And there a very concerted effort was made. For the first time we saw the success of that policy. The NCERT was the main instrument, CBSE through the syllabus, but NCERT was the main instrument, and textbooks were interfered with, they were removed, new books were brought in. There was a lot of protest. And in fact, the protest was strong enough for immediately after the BJP-led government fell, for the UPA government that came in to take this up as a major issue, and the textbooks that had been brought in were removed, new textbooks got written by new teams of scholars, etc., etc. Again, once they came back to power, this time there was a more gradual effort, because they had seen that the resistance and the protest could be very strong when it was very overt. So they took time till they got into a majority. So up till 2019, we didn't see much influence, much interference in the NCERT textbooks. It was happening quietly. They were preparing the ground with appointments and things like that. But certainly what was happening was the interference started at the curriculum level. And the UGC now was brought in as a major player. And at the undergraduate level, a whole new syllabus, which is a ridiculous syllabus, was brought in. And the thing is that even though it is not compulsory, but everybody bends over backwards to accept it. So all over the country, that new curriculum framework has actually been accepted in most places. New textbooks have come into the market. This is a little told and little known story. And the pattern is the same. First, through some RSS affiliated organization, a paper or a pamphlet or something will get written as to what has to be done. Then the official sources will take it up, and very soon it becomes policy. For the last 3 years now at the NCERT level, there is active change. Every year a new set of textbooks is being brought in. I think you're aware, in the newspapers, there's been discussion on that. But at the level of history, the main focus, again, as Aditya just pointed out, has been on two things. One, wherever there is a secular interpretation, and especially something like Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, people must not know, students must not know that it was done by Hindu fanatic associated with the RSS and other communal forces. So the way these are written is to basically camouflage. So the older books, there are deletions, in the new books, all this. There's a whole pamphlet which has been now brought out called The Partition Horrors. And these are now called additional material, not in the textbook, but these are for guidance of the teachers. And it's all about the atrocities which were carried out on Hindus during the partition day. This is the kind of thing that we see. And the other thing, of course, is the wholesale deletion of the history of the medieval period. So you have ridiculous things like there are 2 chapters on the Mughals, and 1 chapter in the middle is suddenly dropped. This is before the new books are coming in. Of course, gradually every year new books are coming in. So there's very clear, one is to wipe the Mughals and the Sultans out of existence, and the other is that anything that has to do with protest, with the Constitution, with Mahatma Gandhi, with Maulana Azad or Jawaharlal Nehru, any symbols of secularism have to be somehow or the other diminished and deleted. The last point which I want to make, it's not about the syllabus or the curriculum as such, but it's a general point which has been raised, especially by our student friends. The call that we must all speak up. We appreciate that very much. I would just want you to say that I was a little surprised that the student friend said, we can understand people of our age compromising, but we can't understand people like you, because now you've, in a sense, lived your life, so why do you have to compromise? I think it's the call I appreciate, the anguish I appreciate, but I would say that youth has been the leader of all revolutionary changes in society. I don't think that youth should tell itself that we can compromise and that's quite all right. It's just something I wanted to share with you. This was my reaction as a historian and as a teacher. I think we all need to fight no matter how old we are. Robila Thapar is only 94 and she's still fighting. She's alive and she's kicking and, as hard as she can. So it's not a question of where you are. It's not a question of people saying, okay, let me get my promotion and, then I will fight. If you want to fight, you have to fight everywhere, wherever you are, in whatever way you can. And the last point I want to make is that my complaint about all of us is that all that we know, we are sharing here, it's not coming out in the public domain enough. We have to write in the press, we have to find ways through social media. People around us, even those who are sympathetic to the cause, just do not have the information. They just do not know what's going on. The havoc which is being caused by the attack on education as a whole, the havoc that is being caused by not just the attack on history, but on the undergraduate program in the country is being demolished, this 3+1 4-year program, which is a complete disaster. The parents don't know, students don't know what's actually going on. I could go on giving you examples, but the point I'm making is we need to make it more public. We need to bring it more to the attention of society, because as the gentleman before me was also what he talked about, science. I mean, what's happening is actually we are destroying the entire infrastructure on which this society and country has been built, one by one, whether it's science or this or that. These are security threats. We won't have scientists. We won't have anybody who can hold everything together. So where are we going? So we need to express this the seriousness of what's going on. It's not just something happening to the left. It's not just something happening to universities. It's a societal issue and a societal crisis that's being created. What are we going to leave to the future generations? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So